My brother-in-law. The accountant embezzled $380K. From my business 4 years of trusting family. 4 years of handing over complete financial control to someone I considered a brother. 4 years of wondering why my successful landscaping business wasn't growing as fast as projected, despite landing bigger contracts and expanding our client base across 3 counties in Northern Virginia. Then last Tuesday, sitting in my home office at 11:47 p.m. while battling insomnia after Dad's funeral, I discovered that my brother-in-law Mark had been systematically stealing from me since the day he joined the company. The discovery came through the most mundane circumstance imaginable. I was organizing Dad's estate documents when I knocked over a stack of our business papers. Picking them up, I noticed a vendor payment to Greenfield Infrastructure Solutions for $8,500. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. After running Peterson Landscaping for 12 years, building it from a single F-150 operation to a fleet of 15 vehicles and 22 employees, I knew every supplier relationship like my own phone number. Grief makes you do strange things. Instead of sleeping, I found myself pulling up our QuickBooks account at midnight, something Mark always handled completely since joining 4 years ago. He'd explained that his CPA certification and accounting degree from George Mason made him the obvious choice for managing our books. When he married my sister Lisa in 2020, the family business arrangement seemed perfect. Professional financial management at a discount rate, steady income for Mark while he built his client base. Classic win-win scenario. Scrolling through vendor lists with exhausted eyes, I found company names I'd never heard of. Greenfield Infrastructure Solutions, Apex Maintenance Group, Regional Equipment Services, Strategic Consulting Partners, Northern Virginia Logistics. Each had received multiple payments ranging from $4,000 to $18,000 over the past 4 years. My stomach dropped as rough calculations formed in my head. These mystery vendors had received nearly $500,000 of our money. I started pulling bank statements, something I'd shamefully neglected because Dad's declining health had consumed my attention for 18 months. Mark always presented monthly summaries and quarterly reports showing steady growth and reasonable expenses. But looking at actual bank records, payments to companies I'd never authorized totaled $387,000 over 4 years. The grief from Dad's death suddenly mixed with a different kind of nausea. Update. Been up for 36 hours straight, going through 4 years of financial records. The scope of systematic theft is mind-blowing. My hands won't stop shaking. This wasn't just stealing money. This was family destroying family while looking me in the eye every Sunday dinner. More devastating details coming as I process what I'm finding. Quick question. When family betrays you this deeply, do you confront them first or go straight to authorities? Mark entered our lives during what felt like divine timing. Dad's Parkinson's diagnosis in 2019 had left me juggling business growth with family caregiving responsibilities. Lisa had been dating Mark for 2 years when they got engaged, and he seemed like everything our family needed: stable, educated, professional. He worked for KMG Accounting downtown, spoke confidently about tax optimization and business growth strategies, and possessed that quiet confidence that made complicated financial concepts sound simple. The business arrangement emerged naturally during a particularly stressful period. We'd landed several major contracts: a $240,000 annual maintenance deal with Tyson's Corner Shopping Complex, 3 Loudoun County residential developments requiring ongoing landscape management, and a Fairfax County Parks contract that nearly doubled our revenue overnight. I desperately needed professional help managing cash flow, payroll taxes, and increasingly complex business expenses while spending evenings with Dad at physical therapy appointments. Mark volunteered his services during Lisa's birthday dinner at Red Lobster, explaining how small business owners routinely miss tax deductions and fail to optimize their financial structures. He offered comprehensive financial management for significantly less than hiring an outside CPA firm. Family discount, he called it with that warm smile that made Lisa light up. The arrangement seemed divinely orchestrated. Keep money in the family while getting professional expertise during our most challenging period. I remember signing the paperwork, giving Mark access to business accounts, authorizing him to handle vendor payments and manage our financial operations. This happened right after Dad's first major Parkinson's episode, when I was emotionally drained and grateful for any help. Mark explained that modern landscaping businesses required multiple vendor relationships, strategic partnerships, and infrastructure investments to remain competitive in the Northern Virginia market. Technical terminology I didn't understand, but trusted him to handle appropriately. The insidious brilliance was how gradually Mark normalized the theft. He started conservatively, maybe $3,000 monthly to fictional vendors with names like Virginia Equipment Consulting or Regional Maintenance Solutions. As I became accustomed to his financial management style and trusted his professional judgment, the amount steadily increased. By year 3, while I was managing Dad's deteriorating condition and Mom's emotional breakdown, Mark was extracting nearly $12,000 monthly through increasingly sophisticated schemes. Mark would present invoices requiring approval, always with just enough technical detail to sound legitimate without being specific enough for verification. Equipment calibration services, consulting retainers, maintenance contracts, infrastructure assessments, all presented as necessary business expenses that successful companies required. When I questioned specific costs, he'd explain them using accounting terminology that left me feeling stupid for asking. Looking back with clear vision, red flags existed from the beginning. Mark insisted on handling all vendor communications directly, claiming his professional relationships secured better rates and services. He discouraged me from contacting vendors directly, explaining that owner interference could jeopardize negotiated deals. Most damaging, he gradually convinced me that financial complexity was beyond my understanding, that successful business owners delegated these responsibilities to qualified professionals. Wednesday morning, I called in sick for the first time in 4 years. The weight of discovery felt physically crushing. Not just the money, but the realization that someone I'd welcomed into our family had been systematically destroying us while sitting at our dinner table every week. I needed uninterrupted time to examine every transaction Mark had processed, and what I uncovered was a masterclass in family-based financial fraud. Mark had constructed an entire ecosystem of fictional companies, each with sophisticated documentation that would fool any casual inspection. Greenfield Infrastructure Solutions specialized in commercial landscape optimization consulting. Apex Maintenance Group provided specialized equipment calibration and preventive maintenance protocols. Regional Equipment Services offered heavy machinery leasing and hydraulic system upgrades. Strategic Consulting Partners delivered market analysis and competitive positioning services for mid-Atlantic landscaping operations. The sophistication was breathtaking. Each fake company maintained legitimate business addresses, mostly mail forwarding services in Reston and McLean that gave the appearance of established Northern Virginia operations. Mark had created basic websites containing professional, business language, generic service descriptions, and contact forms that routed to email addresses he controlled. The sites looked legitimate enough to pass superficial inspection, but contained no real operational details or verifiable contact information. Mark's invoicing system demonstrated criminal-level attention to detail. He created professional-looking invoices using business templates, complete with detailed service descriptions, hourly rates, and project specifications that sounded entirely reasonable for a growing landscaping operation. For example, Regional Equipment Services would bill $14,000 for hydraulic system optimization, preventive maintenance protocols, and performance enhancement upgrades for commercial-grade landscape equipment fleet. It sounded exactly like something a successful business should invest in. The money trail revealed equally sophisticated planning. Payments went to business accounts Mark had established using the fictional company names and addresses. He'd transfer funds to personal accounts or convert them to cashier's checks through various methods. Some money-funded mortgage payments on their upgraded house in Ashburn, luxury car payments, and expensive vacations that Mark attributed to his growing consulting practice. He'd essentially created a parallel financial system where my business income subsidized their lifestyle improvements without anyone questioning the source. The psychological manipulation proved more devastating than pure theft. Mark regularly discussed business expenses and growth strategies during family gatherings, positioning himself as the financial expert working tirelessly to optimize our profitability. He'd express concern about cash flow fluctuations and industry competition, suggesting we needed increased investment in consulting services and infrastructure upgrades to remain competitive. He was literally stealing from me while presenting himself as the solution to financial challenges he was creating. During my 3-day investigation, I discovered Mark had purchased a $45,000 base boat, upgraded from a Honda Civic to a BMW X5, and taken Lisa on expensive trips to Napa Valley and the Bahamas, all funded by fictional business expenses I'd unknowingly approved. They'd renovated their kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, explaining their good fortune as Mark's successful expansion into small business consulting. By Friday evening, I had documented systematic theft totaling $387,000 over 4 years, 5 primary fictional companies, dozens of subsidiary vendor names, and over 800 fraudulent transactions. The evidence was overwhelming and heartbreaking, not just financial destruction, but the realization that every family dinner, every holiday celebration, every moment of shared joy had been contaminated by Mark's secret criminal enterprise. Update. 5 days deep, and I've uncovered a criminal operation that would impress organized crime families. Mark didn't just steal money. He built an entire fake business ecosystem to systematically drain my company while looking me in the eye every Sunday. Found receipts for luxury purchases, vacation bookings, home improvements, all funded by my landscaping business while I worked 70-hour weeks. The evidence is overwhelming and soul-crushing. Should I confront Mark privately first, or let federal agents handle initial contact? Monday morning, I called my attorney, David Morrison, who'd handled business legal issues since I started Peterson Landscaping. David listened with increasing alarm as I explained the situation, then immediately recommended meetings with a forensic accountant and federal law enforcement. He emphasized preserving evidence and avoiding any actions that might compromise criminal prosecution, explaining that the theft amount and sophisticated methodology suggested federal crimes. The forensic accountant, Patricia Chen from Deloitte, arrived Tuesday afternoon. She spent 8 hours reviewing documentation I'd assembled, confirming my worst fears while uncovering additional layers of fraud I'd missed. Patricia explained how Mark had used classic embezzlement techniques, creating false vendor relationships to extract money while maintaining plausible deniability through professional documentation and legitimate-appearing business practices. Patricia's analysis revealed the full scope of Mark's criminal enterprise. Beyond the 5 primary fictional companies, he'd created subsidiary vendor relationships and inflated legitimate expenses through kickback arrangements with actual suppliers. The total theft exceeded $400,000 when including overbilling schemes and commission fraud. Patricia recommended immediate contact with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, explaining that interstate wire transfers and mail fraud brought the case under federal jurisdiction. Thursday morning, I met with FBI Special Agent Sarah Rodriguez, who specialized in white-collar financial crimes. Agent Rodriguez reviewed our evidence with professional efficiency, confirming that Mark's actions constituted multiple federal offenses: wire fraud, mail fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. She explained that the sophistication of the scheme and substantial theft amount would likely result in significant federal charges and substantial prison time. The most difficult decision involved whether to confront Mark directly or allow law enforcement to handle initial contact. Agent Rodriguez strongly recommended against direct confrontation, explaining that sophisticated white-collar criminals often destroy evidence when they realize they've been discovered. She wanted to execute search warrants while Mark remained unaware of our investigation, maximizing evidence preservation and preventing asset concealment. The following Tuesday, FBI agents arrested Mark at his KMG accounting office while simultaneously executing search warrants at his home, our business office, and the mail forwarding addresses he'd used for fictional companies. The investigation uncovered extensive documentation of fraudulent activities, including detailed financial records Mark had maintained to track his illegal enterprise and plan future thefts. Mark's initial response followed a predictable pattern: complete denial followed by attempts to blame accounting errors and misunderstandings. He claimed vendor relationships were legitimate, that any financial irregularities resulted from bookkeeping mistakes or communication problems. When confronted with evidence of fictional companies and forged invoices, he finally admitted to the scheme but attempted to minimize its scope and financial impact. The family destruction was immediate and devastating. Lisa initially defended Mark aggressively, suggesting financial irregularities were misunderstandings rather than intentional crimes. She accused me of destroying their marriage over business disputes, claiming I was exaggerating theft amounts to hurt Mark professionally and personally. The cognitive dissonance was heartbreaking. My sister chose to believe her husband's transparent lies rather than accept overwhelming evidence of systematic betrayal. Our parents reacted with confusion and denial. Mom refused to believe Mark could commit such crimes, suggesting I'd misunderstood business transactions or made calculation errors. Dad, despite his Parkinson's-related cognitive decline, understood the situation's gravity and supported prosecuting Mark fully. Family gatherings became impossible as conversations inevitably turned to the case, forcing relatives to choose sides in a conflict that destroyed decades of relationships. The business survived but required significant operational changes. 4 years of stolen profits had limited equipment upgrades and expansion opportunities, but core operations remained financially stable. Business insurance covered some losses, and asset recovery efforts identified approximately $180,000 in recoverable funds through bank account seizures and property forfeitures. Update: Mark pled guilty to federal fraud charges last week, sentenced to 6 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $387,000 in restitution. Lisa filed for divorce and has slowly started acknowledging the truth about what happened. Watching family crumble over greed and betrayal has been devastating, but justice feels good. The healing process will take years, but I'm finally seeing light at the end of this nightmare. Final question that's been eating at me: do you believe some family betrayals are simply unforgivable no matter how much time passes? 18 months after discovering the theft, Mark was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison. He pled guilty to multiple fraud charges rather than face trial, which would have exposed even more embarrassing details about his criminal activities and potentially increased his sentence. The judge noted the sophistication of the scheme and the breach of family trust as aggravating factors, justifying the substantial sentence. Asset recovery efforts ultimately recouped $190,000 of the stolen money through property seizures, bank account freezes, and insurance claims. Mark's boat, BMW, and investment accounts were liquidated to satisfy restitution orders. Lisa cooperated with recovery efforts after their divorce, surrendering jointly owned assets purchased with stolen funds. While we didn't recover everything, the business not only survived but thrived once we eliminated the hidden financial drain Mark had created. Lisa and I slowly rebuilt our relationship after she finally acknowledged the full extent of Mark's betrayal. The divorce process was complicated by joint assets purchased with stolen money, but she eventually apologized for initially defending Mark's actions and recognized how his manipulation had affected her judgment. Our relationship remains strained, but is gradually healing through family therapy and honest communication. The experience taught invaluable lessons about trust, verification, and family business arrangements. I now maintain direct oversight of all financial operations, use independent auditors for quarterly reviews, and never assume family relationships guarantee honest business practices. Trust, once shattered at this fundamental level, requires years to rebuild and may never fully return to its original state. Peterson Landscaping is stronger now than ever before. Without the hidden financial drain, our profits increased dramatically, allowing for equipment upgrades, employee bonuses, and expansion into 3 additional Virginia counties. Sometimes removing a cancer allows healthy growth that was previously impossible. Dad lived long enough to see Mark sentenced, expressing pride that I'd handled the situation with integrity rather than family loyalty overriding justice. The most profound lesson learned was distinguishing between forgiveness and accountability. I've forgiven Mark for my own peace of mind, but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences or restore broken trust. Some betrayals fundamentally change relationships forever, and that's not necessarily wrong. It's protective wisdom earned through painful experience.